someone else's show with breaking news this quickly or in this way. But Benny Johnson, with an absolute massive story in his interview with Harmeet Dillon, saying DOJ announced its intention to charge Don Lemon under the KKK Act. The KKK Act makes it illegal to threaten, hurt, or intimidate people to prevent them from exercising their God-given rights. Harmeet Dillon saying the Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes. It's a law that makes it illegal to terrorize and violate the civil rights of citizens. Now, there have been many comments made recently as the story develops around Don Lemon going into this church. I do want to pull up, there might be something I could pull up and add to this. Let me see if I can find it. Commentary that's basically saying, Don Lemon, yeah, I have this tweet from Eric Doherty. Let me see if I can pull this one up. Video of Don Lemon saying he knew in advance and that they were going to intentionally catch people off guard. This is incriminating. And now he's facing charges. Let me play this clip for you from the Benny Johnson show. Again, shout out to Benny. Amazing work. Harmeet Dillon, thank you for talking about this and expressing it and getting out of the Benny show. We don't get enough transparency from government. But check this out.
We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. Who funded this? What else? What other crimes may have occurred? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Did anyone cross state lines to do this? All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges.
I mean, I've just pulled up the Klan Act because this is the first time that I've heard this mentioned. This is a act that was passed in 1871, correction there, to combat the Ku Klux Klan and protect African Americans' voting rights, especially the Enforcement Act, which is known as the Force Act. So here's some of the information on screen. Would you mind breaking down for us, because we have just read the FACE Act and how this is in affinity to the FACE Act and obvious and egregious.
Now, I want to make sure something's very, very clear. In the clip, she doesn't explicitly state Don Lemon's name. I think she may be broadly referring to all of the people involved, but here's where it gets interesting. This clip, let me play this clip from Don Lemon for you.
Into Minneapolis a little bit ago and did some reconnaissance on the ground, speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest. I've been pleasantly surprised to see the community coming together. Diverse community. If you see this when we first pulled up, we're like, wait a minute, which operation are we at? And as it turns out, because we're like, well, this is kind of MAGA coded, right? So the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters that are planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up, and it's Kima Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account. And so that's what we're doing here, and then after we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, I can't tell you where they're going.
Surprise operations. Jorge Benila says, intent. Let me show you this. The opening to Don Lemon's insane live stream is an admission of foreknowledge the group he was in contact with was going to storm a church based on his prior communications with its leader. Now, I do want to stress this. There's a question of whether or not you're allowed to be a journalist following a group that you know is going to break the law. But let's talk about gradient. Let's talk about degrees. If a group of people said, we are going to rob a bank, and you went, I'm a reporter, I'm going to follow you as you do it, you'd probably get in trouble. Now the question is, how serious will the DOJ take the FACE Act and the Klan Act? Because if they say this is serious federal law, you had foreknowledge of a crime that was to be committed, and you went with them. The issue here is, I put it like this, reasonably, I don't think you charge Don Lemon under the same laws as you charge the extremists. But I do think there's going to be charges, largely because being a journalist or press does not give you the right to enter private property and violate other people's rights. So they may actually pursue some type of charges related to the Klan Act. Now, I want to play the greater segment. I think it's very important to get the clarification if she's explicitly talking about Don Lemon in the group.
Possible violation of the FACE Act because they were entering a place of worship, harassing and threatening. We just played a video of a man, a bearded man, who was threatening to attack the Christians that were worshiping there, so it seems like an obvious FACE Act violation. But the Klan Act here, it is on screen. First time I've heard it mentioned. Can you unpack this for us, Harmony?
Yeah, the Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the southern states, Dixiecrats mainly, were refusing to give them equal rights. In fact, that you had sheriffs and you had law enforcement harassing the newly freed slaves. So the Klan Act is a law that makes it illegal to terrorize citizens, to violate their civil rights, to get together and conspire to violate the civil rights. It is often used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. We, in the federal law enforcement parlance, call this 241 and 242 civil and criminal conspiracies. And so what the Biden administration did is, if 3 grandmas got together to pray outside an abortion clinic for the souls of the people inside, and including unborn children, they would say, oh, that's not just a violation of the Klan Act, that's a conspiracy to violate the civil rights of women going in there to get abortions. And so we're going to add additional charges and punish that more and make it from a misdemeanor under the FACE Act to a felony under the Klan Act. And President Trump pardoned the pro-life protesters in those cases. I have recently defended successfully in the 11th Circuit a case called Oropesa, a case of Jane's Revenge, the pro-abortion protesters violently attacking crisis pregnancy centers in Florida, and we had the court uphold the Klan Act criminal enhancement to the FACE Act. So I know this is very deep in the weeds, but the point is there are a number of things. The FACE Act is just the start. Like I said, you have material support for disruptive activities. You have conspiracy to violate civil rights. You have potentially the use of other instrumentalities to commit crimes. And so some of these folks who did this have self-identified. Don Lemon himself has come out and said he knew exactly what was going to happen inside that facility. He went into the facility, and then he began, quote-unquote, committing journalism. And as if that's sort of a shield from being a part, an embedded part of a criminal conspiracy. It isn't. And so, we're getting our ducks in a row, we're putting the facts together, and this is a very serious matter. Come next Sunday, nobody should think in the United States that they're going to be able to get away with this. Everyone in the protest community needs to know that the fullest force of the federal government is going to come down and prevent this from happening and put people away for a long, long time.
Wow. I mean, this is an absolute hammer drop. I mean, she said it. Now, I'm reaching out for clarification just because I want to hear it explicitly, but when she says Don Lemon claiming he's committing journalism is no excuse for being part of a conspiracy, you have this video. This is why I pulled this one up. You have this video where Don Lemon says he knows what's going to happen. He's with the group. They're going to do it, and he won't tell you. And that's the point I bring about committing crimes. Now, listen. It's one thing if there's civil disobedience. Activists saying, we're going to go march to the street, we're going to get arrested for it, maybe. You don't arrest a journalist for that, I get it. But we're talking about the Klan Act, where these guys went to a church. You're talking about felonies. This is where the line gets drawn. If you know a group is planning to commit a serious crime, and you just say, I'll go with you and film it, you're going to get in trouble. Again, it's not so simple, let's say, just a crime, right? If someone said, we're all going to jaywalk, and you're like, I will film it, no one's going to charge you, no one's going to arrest you. The laws in this country are subject to what the society tolerates. And the issue right now is people are pissed about the storming of this church. And Don Lemon saying, I just committed an act of journalism. I didn't do anything. You heard it from Harmony Dillon. Again, I got to give a shout out to Betty Johnson. Excellent interview. This is why these shows have to happen. Because you get that conversation and we get keyed in to the thought process of the DOJ, Harmony Dillon, who focuses on civil rights. For too long, there has been a one-way street in this country for civil rights. And they've talked about it. You had these little old ladies out in front of an abortion clinic, criminally charged with and sentenced to jail. You had protesters occupying the lobby, and they said it's illegal to be in an abortion clinic. Now, what they did was, because they wanted to make it so people could get abortions and you couldn't protest it, which is just insane to ban protest. Where's the First Amendment? They said, no, we're protecting everybody. You can't disrupt churches either. Well, the thing was, nobody was disrupting churches. It was just protests at abortion clinics. And they wanted people to get abortions, so they passed this law. And guess what? You made it two-way street, even if it wasn't at the time. And now the DOJ says you can't storm churches. And Don Lemon simply saying I'm committing journalism does not absolve you from what Harmy pointed out as conspiracy. You knew what they were going to do. You wanted to get it on film. You wanted to get in people's faces. I don't mean that aggressively. Like, you wanted to get up and get up to their face and interview them and their shock reaction. You knew it was going to make you money. You knew it was disruptive. You knew you weren't allowed to go in that building in this way. And now here we are. I don't believe, I'm just going to give you my opinion, I don't think Don Lemon should get the same charge as everybody else. I think he should get some, there's got to be some accountability for this. He can stand outside, or, you know what he should have done? He should have went and asked, there are protesters, is it okay if I film inside your private establishment? Now, I know it's a public accommodation. Does it mean you can just storm in with people you know are committing crime to film them and the reaction of their victims? Therein lies the big crime, okay? If you, I mentioned this earlier, so you walk into a Walmart filming, they're going to ask you to leave. You're going to get trespassed. You don't leave, you can get arrested. Now, usually cops don't want to arrest you for trespass. They'll just forcibly remove you and say stop. Now, what if people are being victimized? This is where it gets bad. Don Lemon knew these people were going to go and terrorize a congregation, okay? Screaming in their faces, threatening them over their political beliefs, disrupting a place of worship. Serious crime. Felony. Harmon says. He knew. Now, you might argue, and the left will, he's just filming, it's totally allowed. Except Don Lemon knew people were going to be victimized. That's the issue. Let's flip the script. Let's flip the script. Let's say Nick Sorter knows a group of protesters are going to go into an abortion clinic. And they're going to block the entrance. They're going to scream and disrupt practices there, which is also protected under the FACE Act. He knows they're going to do it, and he wants to go film the doctors as they're being screamed at. Do you think at all the Biden DOJ is going to be like, nah, he's out here. That was always allowed. No, they're going to say no excuses. You know I know this? Because I pointed out earlier, Steve Baker was a journalist in the Capitol, and they said, we don't care. They put him in shackles. They did not care. Now, I'm not going to say two wrongs make a right? Just because the Biden DOJ is corrupt, crooked, and evil doesn't mean we should be. But the issue here is that Don Lemon was not just doing an act of journalism. He is with this group in advance, knowing they're out to victimize people. And there's a line. We try to figure out what is reasonable. So let me ask this. And I know the left is going to say, no, the right's going to say. But I'll give you the moral logic. The Capitol building is typically open to the public. In this instance, it was not. Protesters ripped down the barricades, fought with cops, rioted, and busted their way in. Those people should go to jail. And they did. When the people got in, they opened up doors. And on the other side, there were people who were not rioting, who walked in an open building. They did not know, some of them, that there was a riot at all. Police took selfies with them. Smiled. The shaman, famously on video, was guided to the Senate chambers. Now, you're a journalist. This is a typically public building with a major event, historical event happening, and you decide to go in with two other journalists to document what is happening. That's what he did. And they called him an insurrectionist, they put him in shackles, they arrested him, and they forced him, he pleaded guilty. Because he knew that they were going to throw the book at him. Some people weren't even allowed to present evidence. Now, again, let's ignore the trials, let's just say this. He was charged, despite this being a public place, temporarily closed, and he was documenting this riot. Now, there were other journalists there who were not charged. Elijah Schaffer was not charged. Good, he should not have been. Richie McGinnis, press credentials, should not have been charged and was not. So why was he singled out? In fact, There was a reporter from a local news station who had his big camera filming, and they raided his house. I think it was in, like, Mississippi or something. The DOJ said, we don't care. So why would Don Lemon, who's slammed the J6ers over and over again, get any kind of special provisions here? He knew what they were doing. He didn't care. This is crazy. She said it outright, man. Don Lemon is coming for you. I'm gonna wrap it there, my friends. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Again, I want to give Benny a shout out for this. This is what independent media is all about. Shout out to Harmeet Dillon and the DOJ for coming out and explaining their intentions, because we typically don't get that kind of transparency. Conspiracy theorist, but if I had to be one, I'd go for the conspiracy theory that prominent establishment forces want to convince the populist right to be stupid and believe stupid things that will spin them off in a tizzy, so they can't focus on the real fight for this country, protecting our borders, making America great again, restoring our manufacturing base, fighting for what truly matters. So what I see here in this story, my friends, is a psyop. The question, of course, that simply rounds this whole thing out: why is it that Candace Owens is being recommended to new people in such massive frequency despite breaking all the rules? Guys, I've got this thread for you, and I think it's about time those that refuse to accept this finally do. She's lying. I don't think she's crazy. She's just lying. I got a question for you right now. For those that don't like me, that are on Candace's side, by all means, thank you for watching the video. Hear me out. Do you think Charlie Kirk was a time traveler? Yes or no? Honest question, yes or no? Do you think that agents were controlling him since childhood? And Candace Owens. Honest question. Do you think that Elon Musk is a hybrid machine built by the AI? Honest question. Now, most of you are saying no. What? But these are actually things she's been promoting on her show. I kid you not. I've got a series of clips for you to actually watch. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is that she has been making string after string of absurd statements and claims under the guise of just asking questions. And there have been prominent media personalities that were too cowardly to call it out. Certainly there were people before me who called it out, and then I finally got to my tipping point. I called it out. But here's what's happening. In the last year, there's two ways to interpret what this is. Candace's viewership was great, but, it is what it is. It was what it was, and politics after the election was on downswing for us and for everybody else. Although our viewership has remained pretty good relative to everybody else's, we've actually seen growth and improvement with Timcast IRL doing about 80,000 new subs per month. We're not the biggest show in the world, but, we're kind of big. There are many other prominent personalities who are seeing their viewership decline. They were losing subscribers, actually losing subscribers. Well, I think the first and simplest thing to say is Candace was attempting to one-up every show. Charlie Kirk's assassination was big, people had questions, and at first she asked honest questions. Why was Tyler Robinson in a Dairy Queen? And we said, that's an interesting point, like, where was he? What's going on with this? Then when you get to the point where it's like, her wife may have known about it, she was betrayed by his own organization, he came to me in a dream, he's a time traveler, Elon Musk's a robot, you're like, whoa, hold on. Where it ultimately goes is that in order to keep the audience addicted to the Mystery Box podcast, you have to offer up another morsel every day because you can't stagnate. Now, that's one way to look at it. The other is the establishment machine loves it, is propping up to make sure as many conservatives as possible lose their minds. For instance, there are a handful of individuals that opted to go the route of Candace Owens, and they've now, some of them have realized they look like retards. Unfortunately for them, they put a knife in my back and others and have probably destroyed their careers. Up-and-coming personalities that were finding space and virality decided to go the time-traveling Matrix agent alien route with Candace Owens, and now everyone's mad at them because they've exposed themselves as disloyal grifters. Let me not waste your time. Let me just play the clips for you. Here's one clip. Was Charlie Kirk a time traveler?
Why did Charlie think he was a time traveler?
He didn't.
He said, as I showed you in earlier messages, that he was a time traveler and he had to find me. Is that just something people are saying to their homies in text messages?
Yes. He's making a point. He's saying that I feel like I can see the future. I know what's happening. I've got to fix these problems. It's a metaphor. But now she knew that. She knew that. But she's trying to insinuate that Charlie had magic powers or was from the future.
Yeah, and not anything that I would have placed so much emphasis on back when he was saying it, but it came to fruition. The other part is he did die young. Why did he think that him dying young was necessary in order to change things? He did die young. It is really a terrible thing to say. In some way or another, at the very least, we could all agree it's related to him speaking at a campus event for Turner Point USA. I'm totally occupied by this until you read these messages and go, what is this? What is reality actually?
Yeah, he's a time traveler.
He died. He said it was related to his organization. We would all agree that his death and the manner that they did it changed the world in ways that I don't think we can fully realize, or I can't. Certainly not the way that I can articulate. You just cannot pretend that all of this is one big unhappy coincidence. It's entirely plausible, I think plausible, but they knew something about Charlie, and that's why they had him marked and had him monitored and had him followed since he was young. And maybe they thought, the agents think, that if they swarmed him and
The agents. Tell me more about the agents, Candace.
stayed with him and pretend to be his friend, that ultimately they could control Charlie and perhaps change an outcome. They could literally change an outcome related to Charlie. So when for the first time in his life, I do believe he was managed. I mean, I always said I didn't recognize that I had agents.
You had agents. You were handled. Wow. She was a part of it. I love how she's doing this. Remember when I said she used the same security as Charlie and she denied it? This is how she admits it. I didn't even know. Oh, whoa. Because she's full of it. Okay? She had agents. Charlie's a time traveler. What else do we have?
This was just all me crazy rantings every day. Candace is up on this show like Miss Cleo from the 90s and just like predicting what she thinks happened. It's such a ridiculous way to try to delegitimize the research that we have done. I rarely have vivid dreams, and I did in fact have a very vivid one. Again, Charlie came to me and told me that he was betrayed.
In a dream.
I don't know who exactly it is that betrayed him, but I also felt in the dream that it is soon going to be revealed. Which brings me to dreams, by the way. A dream that I had, a very vivid dream.
You know, I'm not going to rag on her too much about having a dream thing because I do believe in spirituality. I think it's possible. Let's talk about how everyone's a robot, Candace.
Something very disturbing is happening in America. I feel like AmFest is, or what it did for me was it contributed to my realization that the future, the dark future that everyone's always predicting, like the AI future, it's here. We're actually here. I think that we are fighting machines. I think that these people are not humans, that they're sentinels that maybe look like humans. That's how I feel. I feel like it's the single solitary event that contributed to my realization that the future is happening right now. Leading people into AI, I have always sensed this demonic because I'm telling you, I don't think these people are human. Like, I've looked at Elon Musk and Sam Altman and Peter Thiel, and I'm pretty sure they're higher. You know what I mean? Like, they just look like an Apple software that I should be able to download at night, you know? Like my phone's getting an update or something. It's something in the eyes. Like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if I stabbed you completely, you know? I'm not going to stab them. But I don't know if they bleed all the way. They could batter the fall. You know what I mean? The gap that's between us and the rest of them is essentially they don't know how to behave like humans. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Like we're fighting an algorithm. Computer code that is presenting as a human being, but actually it can't comprehend real human emotion, and the programmers can't quite write the code specifically enough to emulate real human emotion. And so in response, they're just multiplying the sentinels, like they're sending more of them to say and do things that are obviously abnormal, they're obviously inhumane, and they're hoping that with enough of them pretending like it's fine, they can override our humanity. I don't know if this is you know?
Dude, guys, listen, please hear me. I can't believe how many people decided to stick a knife right in my back because they wanted to be on the Candace train. Okay, listen, it would make for a great sci-fi mystery show, but if you actually believe that Sentinel Americans are half robot, and Elon and Sam Altman are robots? Dude, I'm sorry, listen. Aliens, maybe. We don't know what we don't know. I'm not going to say it's impossible, to be completely honest. It's within the realm of possibility that military AI created hybridized machine humans or something. Let me just stress, the probability of such an event is so incredibly low. I have no problem with entertaining these ideas. I make jokes about Greater Earth and Tartaria and Atlantis and the ice wall. It's fun. And I tell you this, we don't know what we don't know. We could be chickens in a chicken coop for all we know. Earth could be a zoo for all I know. There's a lot of things to entertain. But you cannot base your life off of these ideas because they're rooted in nothing but thought. A hypothesis is fine to have. But I assure you, Elon Musk is a human. He's got like 15 kids. Like Ashley St. Clair is in on it. She like Elon was a robot machine. He's like, I have to impregnate you, feed my food. Like the dude has children, one of which is trans and doesn't even like him. The guy's a human being. It's just when you are in Candace's position and your whole thing is drama escalation. This is what I explained with Mike.com on Huffington Post, all these sites. When you call Trump a racist to get 1 million views and chase the high, you have to increase the dose every time. So when Candace starts with, who really killed Charlie Kirk? Every day she needs to drop a new grain of sand to make the heat. But you can't just keep saying the same thing. So
check was to pay a debt. He did. So Peter, Everett, Steve, thanks for sending that. Diane Wilson wrote this for ABC 7 Chicago. A man in North Carolina won the lottery, but couldn't immediately collect his winnings. He said he tried his luck in the November 4th Mega Millions drawing, and he matched 4 numbers. And that means that he won $800. Now, I understand Mega Millions is much more fun to win, but if you win $800, that's not bad. $800. So, because of the size of that prize, he couldn't just go in and cash it anywhere. He had to travel to the North Carolina Education Lottery's regional office in Raleigh to claim his winnings. I filled the form out, gave them my ticket, and I sat down and I waited, he said. But instead of receiving a check, they came out and handed him paperwork explaining that under the North Carolina State Lottery Act, when a winner owes a debt to a state or local agency, the lottery winnings, minus taxes, are applied to that debt. He says a lottery reporter told him, there are 2 counties that you owe money to. And I said, well, which ones? They told him. He said, I've never been there before. I don't know anybody there. So he contacted both counties and gave them his name and his birth date, but was told there was no debt. So then they said, well, how about your social security number? So he gave them that, and they said, oh, yes, but it's another man's name, but it's attached to your social security number, so it looks like somebody else was using his social security number and somehow creating debts that the county thinks this guy owes. So he said it's the first time he'd ever heard of the issue. He wanted more information, but says he was told that they couldn't release the information. Says the counties told him they would look into it. After waiting more than a month with no answers and of course no money, he called several more times, was told that officials were still investigating. So then he contacted ABC 11, and there's a newscaster there who's called the troubleshooter, Diane Wilson. And she, of course, is at the ABC affiliate there in Raleigh. And so the man says to her, I told my wife, we need to call Diane Wilson. I said, because I've seen her get refrigerators and washing machines. So why can't she get $800 for me? So it's not the end of the earth, $800. But that's the problem. It's enough money where you're not going to walk away from it. But trying to get people interested in it, a little harder. So ABC 11 reached out to North Carolina Education Lottery, which confirmed the man's winnings were processed properly and sent to another county. So she contacted representatives in that county who said they'd been looking into the issue for more than a month and we're still working on it. We're still working on it. Shortly after that inquiry, however, the man got the good news. He says they erased my social security number out of their databank. So how it got there, we don't know. It's possible that somebody who is a ne'er-do-well, as we used to say, because we don't say it anymore, must have given this man's social security number as his own and then got himself into some kind of financial trouble. Within days, the man received a check for his lottery winnings minus the required taxes. He later told Wilson at ABC 11, I was glad that you intervened and came to my rescue. The county says the debt tied to the social security number dates back more than 10 years and may have been a case of mistaken identity. May have been. I suspect more likely it was a case of fraud, but we'll get there. It's still unclear how the error occurred. The bottom line is the man finally got his lottery winnings and says he's still trying his luck at the Mega Millions. So you can buy a bunch of tickets with $800 minus taxes, as they keep emphasizing that. I'm not sure what kind of chunk they take out of your $800 in taxes, but they do deduct all that stuff up front. But I have heard of people who went places where they're asked a social security number and they just filled one out. And the interesting thing is that if somebody wants to know if you've got a driver's license, they'll quite often ask to see it. Can I see your driver's license? Like if I was going to hire